for any tipo ebe mo bibia akwa abashonko so area ba Ghana Politics Avenue so ye best say obibia say afi eno abadwumade kese we so like dwumade share subscribe to the channel on say be political trending news there ko ene de be bia Ghana Politics Avenue so depend so be bremo na better for any tipo ene obibi busa ye political highway so no ensem ben ena yaso akwa akote eye sesi Kwesi Patt aba be expose eye NDC pro big time all chim say John Dramani Mahama e ba be reshuffle na radio reshuffle radio akwaye madwum na akwaye mentimo wase akwaye bibia ho kosi nim senka NDC ministers ne de nka obi e bo ne homodin obi a yama ne post bia no or bo ne homodin or ye adwuma but right now Kwesi Patt aba be kasem o kasem mu wie no so wan kasa kwa o sa the evidence a actually say reshuffle no ebitimesi ewo NDC ministers ni mabusa for members ma jemo mrabos members ma say mo mbre no mo me yonko ni yonko one ahiaba good morning show and some of them me do bibia as
this hierarchy or assist in this hierarchy and you start declaring your intention to succeed President Mahama. How do you deal with this structure? Think about it. How do you deal with this structure? So you're a minister and you have ambitions of if ever the vice president should offer herself, you have ambitions of contesting her and defeating her. How do you work with her? They are human beings, so these are not machines, these are human beings. How do you work with her? So they are creating unnecessary problems for the president, they are creating unnecessary problems for Ghana, they are creating unnecessary problems for themselves. They should be sacked. Anybody who stands in front of the mirror in his bedroom and comes to the conclusion that he is the best gift of God to Ghana is loony. Needs to have his brain examined. How do leaders emerge? Leaders do not emerge through self-proclamation. Leaders emerge through self-proclamation.
Not at all.
They don't. And what you're having is self-proclamation. People who can't string two sentences together. People who struggle to string two sentences together are seeing themselves as presidents of the Republic of Ghana. What is this? It's so shameful, it's so embarrassing. And I agree 100% with Callistus. And I would suggest very strongly to the president that he should take this thing seriously if he's not the man who instigated it in the first place. And deal with it. Look, you have a president, you have a vice president. The president, I have insisted, cannot go beyond one term now. The Constitution says so. I would not support the president violating the Constitution or trying to amend the Constitution as other despots have done in Africa. So, by 2028, President Mahama should give way. In the natural scheme of things, in terms of authority and so on, who is next? It doesn't mean that the person who is next in line today necessarily has to become the successor. It doesn't mean that. But there's a certain hierarchy that we are working with now. Now, if you are third in this hierarchy or fifth in...
Roars at ambitious appointees. And he has the picture of them. So, Callistus doesn't mention anybody's name, but the Herald has the picture of Ato, Castle Ato Force, the finance minister, and Mr. Julius Deborah. I haven't heard the two of them say anywhere that they want to become president, but I'm sure that there's something the Herald know that we don't know, so we can grant them that. Larry is a credible journalist, so I don't have any reason to doubt what he's saying. Now it says that the Executive Secretary to the President, John Dramani Mahama, has issued a stern caution to government appointees and party figures nursing ambitions to lead the NDC, urging them to step aside if their political aspirations threaten to undermine their current responsibilities and the mandate of the administration. In an article published on the Daily Graphic online portal yesterday, May 5, 2026, Dr. Callistus Mahama stressed that public office demands undivided commitment and discipline, warning against the dangers of allowing personal ambition to interfere with governance. I'm going to quote him. Public office is, at its core, a trust. It demands presence, attention, and a full measure of commitment. It does not lend itself easily to divided focus. He cautioned that when personal ambitions begins to compete with the demands of governance, it leads to a quiet erosion of performance, discipline, and ultimately trust, adding that those who cannot subordinate ambition to duty risk doing injustice to both. Dr. Mahama further notes that where such tension becomes irreconcilable, right? Stepping aside should be seen as an honorable cause rather than a sign of weakness. The nation deserves full service, ambition deserves honest pursuit. The two must not be confused. The Executive Secretary underscored the fragility of the government's reset agenda, warning that it remains in the early stages and requires consistent discipline and collective focus to succeed. According to him, the administration's progress could be undermined if officials begin to prioritize factional interest or future political positioning over national mandate. There is a quiet danger, and I'm going to quote him. There's a quiet danger that sometimes creeps into political life. Attention shifts from the work at hand to the question of what comes next, he observed, cautioning that discussions about succession in 2028 are emerging prematurely. Dr. Mahama points out that when President Mahama assumed office in January 2025, Ghana faced significant economic challenges, and that required urgent and sustained attention. He stresses that barely a year and a half into his administration's tenure, it is premature to shift focus to leadership contest when the core mandate of stabilizing the economy and restoring public confidence is still ongoing. I quote him, President Mahama still has more than 2.5 years to deliver on the commitments made to the Ghanaian people. Those years are not excess time. They are the core of the mandate. Turning to internal party matters, Dr. Mahama notes that the NDC itself has not yet completed its internal electoral process, beginning from the branch level through to the national structure. He describes these processes as essential to the party's legitimate. I want to continue that here. Very interesting article. Okay. Stressing that leadership must emerge through established democratic structures rather than premature maneuvering. Even the foundation has not yet been settled, yet thoughts are already drifting to the summit. Dr. Mahama concluded by urging restraint and focus, noting that there will be an appropriate time for leadership contest and political ambition to be expressed through the party's democratic process. For now, he said the priority must remain on governance and delivery. The question before us is not who leads in 2028. The question is whether by 2028 we would have delivered enough to justify the trust that was placed in this administration in 2025. The clock is not yet ticking towards succession. It is ticking towards delivery, and for now, discipline must prevail over ambition. And then the Herald publishes the article, the full article, just below the report itself. Kwesi, you're on record to have made a similar advice in the past. Does this give a shot in your arm?
Okay. First of all, let me start with the possible motive for carrying the pictures that the Herald carried with the story.
Atu and Jiros's picture?
Yes. And Mohammed's picture.
Yes, and Mohammed's picture, yes.
There could be many. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily mean that these are the culprits or these are the people who are campaigning to, assume the mantle. It doesn't necessarily mean that. If you take somebody like Mr. Julius Debra, he's supposed to be at the center of the disciplinary machine as chief of staff. Yeah. He's supposed to make sure that ministers are kept in line and so on. And therefore, it is good reason for using his photograph. If you take Atu Forson, his role as finance minister necessarily puts him at the center of coordination. You understand? How to make sure that every agency, every ministry, every department is properly resourced, and how to focus attention on the reset agenda. So it may not also be because of his ambition. It could be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the reason why their pictures are put out there. That's the first point. Now, the second point I want to make is partly speculative.
Okay, but before you talk about why, with the fact that what you're about to say is partly speculative. Now, relative to the issue of who is harboring what ambition? You've been seeing the Musa Dangwa polls. And we've all sat here and I've said that Musa has credibility. Now, when you look at the list of persons who he's been polling, the two of them are in there. In fact,
that is true.
Julius Debra recently didn't even feature. But recently he's featured in that poll. So I'm just saying, no, just to add some.
Moro, don't stress yourself.
Okay, all right. So there's some truth.
I'm saying that it could be.
It could be.
But it is not necessarily what it is.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Right.
Okay. So that's the point that I made.
Okay.
But I'm saying that the next point I'm going to make is to some extent speculative, but I think it still has to be made. Can you imagine a situation where, without a nod from the president himself, the executive secretary can issue such a statement or author such an article?
Why not? He can.
The executive secretary.
It's not the first time Kalisi is writing an article.
No. I know it's not the first time. The executive secretary to the president,
yes,
on his own, can write an article in which he calls on appointees, which include the chief of staff, which include ministers and so on, to quit if they are nurturing such an ambition. Think about it.
Because it's possible.
No, it's not.
That possibility will be a very strange possibility.
Why?
Because he works under the chief of staff, actually, literally.
Listen.
So he can't be calling his boss to that kind of
and it's only a suspicion, I suspect that when you read this article, you must see President Mahama somewhere lurking in the shadows of the article. You understand? And I believe that fully. So those who read this article and think that it's just Callistus on a bench and so on, they will get many things wrong. They should read this article as concerns being expressed through Dr. Callistus Mahama, and they should take it seriously. Because it seems to me that this is the first shot, and that other shots would follow. That's my understanding of what has happened. In any case, Callistus writes very, very well. He's a very effective writer. I recall when there was the issue about the president's use of his brother's jet came out. Callistus wrote an explainer. I'm sure you read it.
Yes.
His choice of language was excellent. His reasoning was... So he writes very well. He's a very effective writer. And if you read this article, it is clear that every word was deliberately chosen and put there. This is a work of art. I mean, clearly, I've read it. You know, I read it only this morning, and it's a work of art, deliberately done. My brother, I agree with Callistus 100%. If it was possible to agree with him more than 100%, I will.
Please, let's stay at 100.
Listen, what is happening within the government machinery, to a very large extent, is even an insult to the people of Ghana. What is happening? We have elected a government 4-year term. Just as we entered the second, even before we entered the second term, people spring from this government machinery who have no mandate from the electorate and so on, and are focusing attention on their dreams of becoming president and so on. And Callistus makes the point. You see, let's take anybody in government. Let's say that there are 3 ministers who all want to be president. What do you think will happen in practice, in real practice? Everybody's practice as a minister will be skewed towards giving them advantages. And that can very easily lead to the emergence of factions in government.
Sure.
Today, you talk to people in the NDC and in government, and I'm not lying, you know it. The person either belongs to A faction or B faction or C faction and so on. It makes it impossible to work together as a team. It makes it impossible to focus on the prime responsibility of government. And I think it's a danger to the NDC itself. If this should continue, it would to a very large extent, minimize the possibility of the NDC doing well in the next elections. The factionalism which is emerging is not in the interest of the NDC. There's no focus. And I'll tell you, I won't give you the details, but I'll tell you. I've spoken to people in the government machinery who think that they are not being adequately funded to achieve a national objective. And their suspicion is that they are not being adequately funded because those in charge of funding don't see them as part of their faction.
Yes.
I'm sure you've heard it.
So you're absolutely right.
You understand?
Yes.
How do you run government like this? Crazy. How do you run government like this? You can't run government like this and succeed. So everything these reckless appointees do will be seen in the light of the effort to promote themselves so they can become presidents in future. That's a big problem. And really, I want to see this as the first shot from President Mahama himself. I want to see this as the first shot. But this first shot has delayed in coming. It should have come much, much earlier. By now, some people should have been sacked.
Oh.
Yes.
But how do you appoint somebody and sack the person?
If you appoint people who are not focusing on your research agenda,
yes,
and are focusing on their personal, individual ambition, some of which is hollow, there's no reason why some people should be seeing themselves as president. Some of them is. I'm sitting back. I say, this guy too wants to be president. How? You understand? It has no merit. And they are wasting the nation's time. They are wasting the president's opportunity, wasting everything on a reckless and useless ambition. He should have sacked them long ago. What is he waiting for? Sack them. Please, sack them. They are not helping in any way. They are not helping the country. They are not helping the president. They are not even helping themselves. Sack them, please. It's time for a major reshuffle in government. The dead wood should be put aside. Those who cannot focus on the national agenda have no business being in government. Those who are beginning to see themselves as emperors and so on. I mean, tomorrow, look, there are 36 million Ghanaians.
I'm sure we be able to head with you with so you will be as a Ghana politics there, Muslim for Guru politics to be any NDCB opinion, Yen Chibi, like you made in Shema, now for Busian for Biansons and Minked Media, and embrace a demon quite set me for Bunsi. So, once okay, we are trust a comment section of Ghana politics, a very brand of church of the Ontario, and the Mumbai Crown.